The topic for today is the dating scene in 2024. The dating scene was appropriate, formal, and safe during the early 2000s and early 2010s, but then it took a untraditional route in the late 2010s. And the reason why I feel like it was like that is because I was born in 1995 and I'm a millennial. So I saw certain trends in the dating scene. Now, for someone that was born in the 1980s, 1970s, they may have differing views, but I feel like my viewpoints are going to correlate to millennials, so those born in the 1990s. So, like I said, it was safe in the 2010s, in the early 2010s and 2000s, and it just took a downhill slope in the late 2010s. I believe there are various factors as to why it took such a downhill turn. And those factors are the Me Too movement, the COVID-19 pandemic, the increased use of technology, social media, and dating apps, the use of pronouns, political party affiliations, and the alternative options to dating have all impacted the dating scene in 2024. Now, after I dive into these different aspects that are impacting the dating scene, I'm going to talk about a personal experience that a friend had where I'm not going to say whether it was good or bad. That's why I'm trying to save that towards the end. But I'm going to describe his experience and the lessons he learned. With that being said, I'm going to dive into the aspects that are affecting the dating scene in 2024. Starting with the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement was a social event that started in the late that started in late 2017, 18, and 19. I don't know when specifically, but it definitely occurred during Trump's presidency. Um, this was major. I remember when I was in college and I'll just come back from classes and I'll just hop on the computer and you just see high profile men being exposed. I'm talking about allegations that you can't even describe. The most prominent names was, I believe, Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein. But the Me Too movement definitely impacted the dating scene. It had its pros and cons. The pros was that voiceless women were now had a platform to stand up against men that previously sexually abused them, harassed them, and even raped them. Because let's be honest, no woman should have to deal with this. But these are experiences that happened to them for whatever reason that they didn't speak about these experiences sooner. We don't know because they're women. The reasons may be because they're shy, they feel like no one's gonna listen to them, etc., etc. But this when this platform begun, women started standing up by the thousands. The men responsible for these things were gonna be facing severe consequences. So society stood up. Society was on the side of women. So that was the a pro of the Me Too movement. The cons was that not every allegation was accurate. And I could say this wholeheartedly because I know a personal friend that faced the backlash of society due to false allegations that this woman was putting on him. So, long story short, this woman started asking him for money. And he started giving her some money. But then, when he stopped giving her money, that's when she started being deceptive and started saying that he did this and he did that. And it got to a point where society was behind this woman's false allegation on this good man. And at the moment, he's good, but it took 2 years for this man, for this man's name to be cleared. So that just showed you how women just took advantage of the Me Too movement. So, how did this movement impact the dating scene? Well, to me, it increased the widening gap between both sexes. Yeah, It increased the gap between both sexes by leading to mistrust, because now you can't trust individuals entirely. And to this day, in 2024, we are still experiencing the long term effects of the Me Too movement. The second factor that has impacted the dating scene is the COVID-19 pandemic. It impacted the dating scene in two factors: the state of the economy and the eradication of social skills. The state of the economy is always correlated with the dating scene or the dating pool. If the economy is doing well, there is an influx of money coming in, so individuals are more stable and they will feel more comfortable to be out there in the dating scene. If the economy is not doing so good, there's no money coming in, and individuals aren't as stable, meaning they won't have that self esteem, that confidence to be out there in the dating pool. At the moment, we are living in a post COVID society. We're currently experiencing inflation. And I mean, everything is to the roof currently: car rates, housing costs, tuition, groceries. I mean, everything is skyrocketing. So, due to inflation, is causing individuals to acquire multiple streams of income just to survive. Pre-COVID, you were probably needing one or two streams of income, and you were okay with that. It probably wasn't a necessity. It was probably optional. But post COVID, now you have to get multiple streams of income to survive, to combat the inflation. So, due to this, it made people more self centered, more selfish, and more aggressive. It made them more primitive in a way, because now you're doing things that you're not used to doing, whether it's legally or illegally. And let's be honest here, we all know individuals that ran it up and got a bag during the pandemic. And now, 4 years later, I'm looking back at it. Do I really can we really blame these individuals because they thought outside the box? They thought outside the box and realized, I gotta look out for me and my family. These aren't normal times we're living in. And during abnormal times, you do what you gotta do to survive, not just in the present, but in the future. So these abnormal times that we're facing post COVID, where inflation is high and causing everything to be where inflation is causing everything to be costly, is making people be primitive, where we're just disregarding people's views and opinions and we're just thinking of ourselves. So that's how the state of the economy currently has people acting. And the second factor where the COVID-19 pandemic affected the dating scene is through the eradication of social norms, the self quarantining, the social distancing, the shunning people in public that are coughing and sneezing, change people's behavior and daily habits. Don't get me wrong now. There was times where when I was inside, I was watching a lot of TV shows and movies. And so, but I know myself as an individual, so I didn't change as much. But you had some people that were out, always outdoors. Those people, once they started staying inside a lot, they started changing. So when society reopened, they weren't acting the same. They probably lost the ability to interact. So if you lose that ability to interact, that's definitely going to impact the dating scene. So I just feel like the COVID-19 basically came and it eradicated the ability for certain people to communicate. So with that being said, if you use the first factor that I said, poor economy, it's going to make people aggressive, more self-centered, think outside the box on how to get money. And if you combine that first factor with the second factor, where staying inside so much made you lose your ability to interact with certain people when society reopens back up. Combine those two factors and you head out there in the dating scene, you know, you won't be compatible to hold a relationship. So, and not to mention, forgot to mention this point. While quarantining, people picked up horrible habits such as increase in drug usage, increase in alcohol consumption, increase in viewing porn. And I know an individual where during the pandemic years, the amount of OnlyFans subscriptions increased. And all these poor habits increased during a time of quarantining. When society reopens back up, you're so used to doing these poor habits that are you really gonna are you really gonna be able to recognize the old you that used to just be going out there and talking to a girl and just holding a solid conversation? So that's something that we have to recognize. At the moment, I would say I've witnessed 4 or 5 friends' habits change from pre-COVID to now. The third factor that have impacted the dating scene in 2024 is the increased use of technology, social media, and various dating apps. So the reason why I feel like that those three are impacting the dating scene, starting with technology. Let's be honest here, as we increase as a society, the technology gets more advanced. Now we're in the era of artificial intelligence. As technology increases, we get dumb as a species because we rely more on technology. So as we rely more on technology, we naturally lose social norms because we give into what these different technologies have to offer. So in general, I feel like, let's say you meet a woman, she likes you, she gives you her number, you message her, 4 or 5 hours later, you wonder why she hasn't replied. If she sees green messages, she's taking that as a sign of poverty, low class, low finances slash funds. You probably drive a regular car. That's what this woman is taking when she sees green messages. Now let's say you message her and she sees blue messages. She's taking it as a sign of wealth, high class, a lot of money, and you drive a luxurious car such as a Tesla or an Infinity. So technology has directly and indirectly stereotyped certain groups of people. Like let's say you're Asian. You're naturally viewed as intelligent, high class. You have an iPhone, drive a Tesla. If you're black or Hispanic, you're in the opposite. So technology has just made it easier to stereotype people. Now moving on to social media. Social media displays a false image. And the reason why I say that is if you could compare social media to an iceberg, 20% of an iceberg is above surface, while the majority of the iceberg, I would say the other 80% is underneath. So people generally post what they want others to see, which would be the top of the iceberg, that 20%. They don't post that 80%, which is what's underneath the iceberg. So that's what social media is. It displays a false image of what reality is. So let's say you get Facebook or IG and you see your peers are posting reels and stories that they're in relationships, they're married, they're engaged. You viewing those things, you're gonna feel a certain type of way. You have become influenced, and now you're gonna be pressured to diving into the dating scene. You have been influenced by what you've seen on social media. Therefore, As a result, you're going out in the dating scene to feel like you should do the same. So again, this false representation of society is seen all over on social media. Now, to dive into the dating apps. The dating apps, wow, the dating apps, your Bumble, your Tinder, and your Plenty of Fish. Hmm, there's so much I could talk about the dating apps, but I just personally believe that they are now used as one night stands, and one night stands lead to an increase of STDs. I mean, it's so easy to match with someone on these apps. You match with someone, you meet up with them, and once you meet up with them, the act of it going down increases. The act goes down, and now you have a body. Just like that. It's easy. You feel satisfied, you wish to replicate that act again on another individual. And doing that repeatedly, you don't know what you have internally. You just have diseases spreading it around to other people. So these dating apps, they're advertised a lot. Again, if we're using the iceberg scenario, YouTube, Snapchat, social media platforms that advertise these dating apps. So they show you that 20%. You make a profile, you'll easily match with someone. You take it slow, but eventually you'll be in a relationship. That's what these social media and the media brands that these dating apps do. Again, a false representation of what's really happening in society. The reality is, you're just going around sleeping with different people, catching things. I'm not saying 100% that that's what's happening, but the majority, that's what they're on. And this also goes down what I'm going to explain. I don't know if it happens to you guys out there, but this has happened to me. A lot of profiles are not true indication of that person's sexuality. What do I mean? I'm a straight male. I like women. So there's times I swipe right and I'll match with someone. But then as I'm talking with this mysterious person, I'm realizing that this person is not giving feminine vibes. Again, I'm a straight man. I like women. So for me to be tuned in, this woman has to be giving feminine vibes. But then I'll realize eventually that this is either a transgender or a straight male that likes men. Again, so these dating apps, they don't give you the full accurate picture. Um it's happened to me. This scenario I described happened to me 2, 3 times. So, and again, these these dating apps, they're like the dark web. It's like the dark web on the low because you don't know who you're meeting. You don't know who you're talking to. You may be meeting with the next Ted Bundy. You may be meeting up with someone that just got it in prior to talking to you. You may be meeting up with someone that has 20 different STDs. I don't know. All I know is I started talking to this person using this dating app. So again, technology, social media, and dating apps as a whole, if we're using the iceberg scenario, you're only seeing 20%. You're not seeing the 20 to 80% that's underneath the water. So it's a bunch of mystery. It's a lot of unknown activity. It's a lot of question marks, etc. The fourth aspect that affects the dating scene in 2024 is the use of pronouns. So if you go on these dating apps, you match up and you see profile description of these different people. Some of them, not all, but some of them, if it's a man, he would say they. If it's a woman, her, she. And there are pros and cons that are affiliated with the use of these pronouns. The pros would be, if I'm a straight man talking to a woman and I see that, this is a confirmation that I know who the heck I'm talking to. Again, going back to the dating apps, there's times you match up with someone that's not who you think they are because they camouflage their sexuality. And I don't think that's fair for me, especially if I have a subscription to these dating apps. Now I realize I've been deceived. I gave into the advertisement, and now I'm realizing that I'm not talking to who I thought I was talking to. But anyway, the use of these pronouns, they have the use of these pronouns on dating apps have their benefits and their disadvantages. If a woman says her, she, and whatever she's describing, I'm now feeling confident that I'm for sure talking to a woman. It's like, thank God. It's like a sign of relief. Um, but a disadvantage would be if a woman is displaying her, she, that lets me know also that she's for the direction that the world is heading into. Because it's like, if you're a straight woman, there's no need to add pronouns. It's like, let it be. If I'm a man, I have a beard, I shave that beard. If I want to get a cut, I cut my hair. But as a whole, I'm still portraying myself to be a man. So for you to add her, she, it just gets me thinking that you're for whatever trend that the world is diving into. You got people that gave into, you got people that took the COVID-19 vaccine. Some people didn't even do their research, they just took it. Now, let's say something else happens. They're just gonna be willing to just accept whatever trend that the world pushes. So that's all I'm saying. The use of pronouns just indicates that um some people would just go according to whatever trend that society pushes. Because if you're a straight woman, there's no need to add that. So when I see these pronouns, I'm thinking this person is for this new age movement, this new era that society's diving in, that's making the world more untraditional, more informal, and more mysterious, you can say. And the last factor I believe I stated impacted the dating scene in 2024 was political party affiliations. The reason why this has also impacted the dating scene is when Trump took office in 2017, changed that changed everything. Because I think I even read a statistic that said more divorces happened when he came in office. So I'm not on here to be pro Trump or anti Trump, but I'm just saying in general that political party affiliations do impact the dating scene and your relationship. If you're a traditional person, you're more conservative. So you kind of have Republican Party ideology. You meet up with someone that's more free spirited, that's more with the directionality that the world is diving in. They may they may be against your traditional values. They may conflict with your traditional values. So these political affiliations, they add unnecessary conflict to the equation. Because if I'm dating someone, let it just be about us. But political party, due to, again, once that individual took office, it just led to a volcano eruption on unnecessary conflict just being added to the equation when you talk about politics. Um, I don't think I've never been. I think I've been asked once, and it was it was not fun because now it's like you're being judged based on what you feel like is right. What you Not even what you feel like is right. You're being stereotyped and prejudged based on what party you feel like you like, but the other person is just they're really taking it as this is who you really are. So that's it for political party affiliation. And now I plan on discussing this personal experience that a childhood friend had that he wished for me to discuss. Yeah, man, my man went through a lot. Now looking back at it, before I describe what he went through and the lessons learned, this man went through what we good men don't want to experience. I mean, this was traumatic. If you are a man who was heartbroken about a woman leaving you and you listen to his experience, it could motivate you. Or have you doing 200 push-ups every night. Because my fellow brothers and sisters, because and the reason why I should incorporate women in this too is because I don't discriminate, and this also applies to women because even though this was my homie, this applies to women too because women don't want to get with the opposite sex and deal with the same thing that my homie went to. So this applies to all sex. These are things you would hear about in TV shows and movies and Reddit and YouTube comments and IG comments. His experience is what you would hear out there in society. For it to be for his experience to hit so close, I mean, it made me realize that I am blessed. I am blessed because as a man and as men in general, we deal with heartbreaks. We've dealt with heartbreaks, but this man experience made me realize that there are levels to heartbreaks. There are levels to forgiveness. There are levels to how much you love someone. There's levels to all of this. So I can't talk about his experience entirely. I can't because if I talk about it entirely, it would lead to that's a topic on its own. But basically, my man went through a lot in the sense that he was in a long-term 7-year committed relationship with someone he loved and had kids with. My man, my boy, he's a good man. He's a good guy. He's loyal. He's goofy, but it's like he has a kind heart. Like he's loyal. And during this 7-year relationship, he was being cheated on. This person that he was with was taking funds and misusing it and lying. This person that he was with was seeing other partners while he was going to work. It got to the point where the person that he was with told other men outside of their relationship of her husband's schedule so that these men could come to the house and get the act done while he was at work. So by the time he comes home, there's no telling the amount of men that have done the act. Again, this isn't someone that he's dating. This is someone that he's in a relationship. And as I stated earlier, as men, we go through all forms of things that break our heart. But this was level 99 to me. This was level 99. I talked with him for 2 weeks, and really I wanted to interview him. I wanted to ask him questions to where you guys could get the response from him directly. So I feel like I'm not doing justice entirely because things like this is better to get it straight from the the source's mouth. Meaning I'm just the middleman explaining to you guys what happened. But yeah, he went through a lot of other things. I mean a lot of other things that I don't even feel comfortable stating in this podcast. Nightmare scenarios. The man was telling me he was suicidal. But at the time, I'm not knowing because at the time, I'm in school. And then when I got done with school, I'm still trying to work on myself to, have a good career, stuff like that. So there's times I'll see his missed call, and I'm thinking I'll call him back because right now I'm just focusing on myself. Little did I know that this man was in the trenches fighting for his mental health, fighting for someone to talk to because of his wife doing these things. And in a situation like this, you just can't hit the dash because if you got kids with this person, you hit the dash and you got to pay child support. So you still indirectly are tied to this person, whether you hit the dash or not. So this man is just terrified for his life. Cheating, finances are being misused. So each week, we don't know how much was being spent. He's telling me that he's coming home and the house is just, it's a hazardous environment. When you work hard, you want to come to a very clean environment. He wasn't getting that. And trying to express that to your partner, it led to more warfare. So I'm going to talk about the 3 lessons that this guy wanted me to share to the audience. Because again, this was something I didn't even want to share, but he pleaded with me to discuss this to the people out there. There are a lot of lessons that he got out of his 7-year relationship with this chaotic and unstable person. A lot of lessons. You could say there's 20 lessons he learned, but for the purpose of this podcast episode, he wants me to share the top 3. 1, really know who you are in a relationship with. He said that he rushed in. He rushed into this relationship with this person without really knowing who this person really was. And he feels like that really screwed him up. So nowadays, we live in a society where you date a woman or a woman dates a man. And now you go from the dating scene to you want to be in a relationship 2 weeks later. Once you're in a relationship, they want to be engaged and eventually married. All approximately, I would say within less than a year. He wants me to convey to the audience that we as a society should take our time knowing the partners that we want to spend a lifetime with. Because if you don't choose your partner wisely, it's gonna lead to a lifetime of pain. It's gonna lead to a lifetime of pain. And there are signs all around us. My friend, unfortunately, there were a lot of signs that he disregarded. And by disregarding all these signs, 7 years later, it led to a lot of stress to where he was even contemplating possibly taking his life. So, first and foremost, you do want to know the individual that you're going to spend a lifetime with to the best of your ability. We live in a society that rushes, but don't give in to that. Really take your time. And if this person rushes you, call it quits. Because there's no point. And you got to think of it like this too. If I'm going to spend a lifetime with you, why am I going to rush to get to know you? You should really be patient, right? They rush into these relationships, but then rush to be out when they're displeased. But when you take your time knowing the partner that you're going to spend a lifetime with, there's not going to be headaches and suffering in the long run because deep down you know this individual. 2, the second lesson that he wanted me to convey to the audience is that this individual should be of usefulness to you. Just because this person is beautiful, just because the act is amazing, doesn't mean you should be with them. And he dived, this is what led to his deception. When the act is good, um, I mean, as men, we're attracted to that, So, but he gave into that. But little did he know that this person wasn't useful in the long run. And I believe he even told me it got to the point where the act attracted him to her. But then as they dove deep in a relationship, it got to a point where they weren't, he didn't even have the strength to do the act with her for a year before they terminated. Well, it's not terminated, but before they started seeing signs of this is not going nowhere, he didn't even have the strength to continue doing the act with her. So the lesson for the second bullet point is basically, if the person is not of usefulness to you, if they're not gonna weed out certain bad flaws out of you, if you're not gonna be able to weed out certain bad habits out of them, if they're not gonna improve the quality of your life and vice versa, and them do the same thing to you, then I think that's a sign of short-term pleasure rather than anything long-term. And the third point that my friend wanted me to state to the crowd is that God has to be the middleman between the relationship that you guys are in. One person at least, because if one person's a believer, it's gonna motivate that other person um to pick up that faith. But if both parties are faithless, then they're just in that relationship drowning. And he indeed was drowning. If God was present in their relationship, God would have improved their relationship. So, to be honest, the lack of God in their relationship, I believe, is what drowned drowned it further to where this man feels how he feels today. Again, there are more things I want to discuss that he was experiencing, but um it's best to get it straight from the man's mouth. And he just, he wanted me to describe a brief of what he dealt with. Really, he wants me to talk about everything, but I'm not that type of person. I'm gonna just briefly discuss it and give certain lessons learned. So basically, don't rush. Take your time knowing this person. Really, because once you know this person, you'll start seeing if they're useful to you or if you're gonna be useful to them. Three, have God in the picture because God is gonna make everything multiply. So that's it.